that Duncan Hunter did not look down the barrel at this person in the eyes, rather fired explosives into a civilian center.
Yeah.
Right. He killed hundreds.
Yes. Well, one person's a death. 100's a statistic, right?
Yes.
So he didn't kill any individuals. He just killed groups.
Not only groups, but groups of brown people. And let's not forget, he killed groups of brown people so that Iraq would become an ally of Iran in the end.
And another reminder that, and another point about this, is that Duncan Hunter will at some point, I'm sure has, been called a racist.
Mm.
Do you think that will ever be brought up? Because, okay, let me
the fact that he killed people in Iraq, will that be evidence of racism? No.
Yeah, I just Googled Duncan Hunter racist. Yeah, he's been called racist many times. Every time it's during election campaigns.
Of course.
He was called a racist because he said that somebody sounded Hispanic. So he sounds Hispanic. And he said that he accused an opponent of possibly being like an undercover...
A Manchurian candidate from Mexico?
Like an Islamist or something. He said, a lot of radical Islamists are coming through Mexico and whatever. And his campaign, the person he was, his opponent, was a Mexican of Palestinian heritage. Mm-hmm. And he made a comment saying like, oh, he sounds like he's Hispanic, but, there's something going on there like that. That is racist.
That does sound pretty racist.
And I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying that's racist. But murdering people, going to their country and murdering them just because they look like the people and look like in the sense of being the same ethnic group that you're against, that's not racist. No one
murder,
will ever,
but in a non-racist way.
In the same way that, why was John McCain a racist? Well, because he was running against Barack Obama, and he said that Barack Obama's economic policy wasn't very good. So he's a racist. But when he was bombing people in Vietnam and calling them slurs, that wasn't racist. What you do in war is never racist. It's only racist when you say things that are against the party line. Very funny how that works.
But speaking of people who were not murderers, who didn't do anything, but could write you a book about what happened if they did it, O.J. Simpson has created a Twitter. There's not a whole story here.
No, it's just more of a comment, really. I saw he posted this video. I can't tell what his level of self-awareness is. I think it's either very low or very high. And it's hard to tell because he made this video saying, for years, everybody, kind of jokingly saying like everybody says whatever they want on Twitter, but now I have a Twitter and now they can't say it without, me getting back at them. Like he said, with no accountability. And now I'll be able to see all the things you people say. And it kind of implied like, I might murder you, make jokes about me murdering my wife and Ron Goldman.
Oh, apparently he actually threatened somebody in a private message. So somebody was running a parody OJ account at Killer OJ Simpson, which really exists to, it's basically an account that just makes, threatening, that just makes jokes about killing people in character as OJ. And OJ messaged them, I will find your ass and cut you, with 16 knife emojis.
That's gotta be fake. There's no way. He's that anyway. So Norm Macdonald tweeted at OJ and said, about this video and said, "Hey OJ, it's Norm," which makes me laugh. Hey OJ, it's Norm. Listen, be careful about the videos you put out there. I recognize.
OJ messaged it and it said, "Delete this account, or I'll have my lawyer remove it." And then the guy said, "And if I don't, you're going to stab me too?" OJ says, "Like I said, delete this so-called parody account, or you'll face, criminal charges. I'll find your ass one way or another."
Not something you want to hear O.J. Simpson say to you. I'm pretty sure, that was one of the last things he said to Nicole Brown.
Before he didn't kill her.
Before some anonymous person killed her and then vanished into the ether from which he came. So, speaking of vague threats that might not be threats or could be on Twitter, Norm said to O.J. that, careful with your videos because I can recognize the golf course behind your house. So I know that exact street and could easily print out your address. Of course, I would never do that, but others would. Be careful, Juice. Basically, Norm tweeted at OJ, I know where you live. And I can't tell if it was meant to be a threat or not. Oh, real quick, I have one more Clown World thing.
Okay.
Which was that the writer Coleman Hughes testified at the congressional hearings about reparations for slavery. And Coleman Hughes, if you don't know him, is a black writer who is an undergrad at, I forget where, some Ivy League institution. And he is a jazz musician, and he's a great writer, writes a lot about race and those type of topics. And he's become very big on Quillette, and now he's on like National Review and some other places. He's not a conservative, though. I think he's self-identifies as a liberal. A lot of interesting ideas, a lot of good writing, and he spoke against reparations and basically said that reparations from individuals to other individuals, where the person who was victimized by the perpetrator is one thing, but when you just give them out as a class, he said, he made this sort of philosophical point that it makes people into victims without their consent. And the effect that if you say, I have to get reparations, you're making me a victim, he resents that. It was funny because you could see people behind him rolling their eyes and sucking their teeth, the usual responses when a quote black conservative makes their points of, this guy doesn't get it. Oh, he's not down. Then as soon as he was done speaking, the whole crowd booed him. And the Congressman Cohen, the same congressman who was eating chicken a couple weeks ago to prove that Trump was chicken, Jerry Cohen, he said, chill everybody, which I thought was weird. And then said that, Mr. Hughes is entitled to his opinion, although he was presumptuous, he should not be booed. Coleman Hughes was condemned by everyone, and some blue checkmark on Twitter, who's a comedian and a comedy writer, said that, and they were a white person, I'm pretty sure, said that just for today, it's okay to call him a coon. That just for this one day, because of this, we're allowed to call him a racial slur. So that's just another update from Clown World, and just a look at your own future.
No. Speaking of black people not getting what they want. So this is just a one done. So some of you may know about a country called Sudan. Sudan is a country in Africa, south of Egypt. It is a member of the Arab League. The Muslim population speaks Arabic. All of them are black. There's a Christian population in the south, which recently seceded. Now, Sudan has been run for, I think, like 20 years by a dictator called Omar al-Bashir. Omar Bashir was not a nice person. So during the Arab Spring revolts, he was ousted from power by, protests. And in particular, the protesters asked, to the extent that, a body of protesters can ask for anything, right? But they asked the military to take over. And that's really how these dictators go down, right? The military, decides that a person's time is up and they take him out. That happened in Egypt. That, they tried to do it in Venezuela, but it didn't work. And, we talked about that long enough. It happened in Romania to Ceausescu, right? Protests happen. And then they're at the gates and the military says, all right. And then they remove the guy. And then there's usually a junta and then it transitions to democracy. Or there's just a junta that sticks around. So the people of Sudan protested against Omar and the military removed him from power. The junta said, all right, here's the deal. We're going to run a junta under military rule for the whole country of Sudan for 3 years. And during this time, we're going to remove Omar Bashir's network of corruption. What this means, and even if you interpret this as cynically as possible, what this means is that the military is going to take over and they're going to purge a whole lot of people related to the old guy, and then they're going to replace them with their own people. And the people of Sudan, again, to the extent that, that even makes sense as a sentence, the people of Sudan were like, okay, right. And the protests mostly died down. So the people of Sudan said, okay, you got a 3-year legitimate junta, and you're going to do some serious political purging, and then we're going to hopefully have democracy. Probably not, but we'll see what happens. That didn't happen. Instead, what happened was 6 months later, the army started, A, shooting at protesters, and B, saying they were going to be hosting elections within the month. Which means that whoever comes to power will be someone who was loyal to Omar Bashir. Other bad things were happening in Sudan, like the internet got cut off, people were dying. All very tragic, but it's happening far away from me. So let's focus on what's really important, and that's how this relates to my politics. This demonstrates, again, what we were saying last time. You can't get the government you want. I mean, the people of Sudan had possibly the most easily acquiesceable request possible. They said, we want the military to take over and we want them to go nuts on a corruption purge. We want a junta. Give it to us. Purge them. Do what you got to do. Kill what you got to kill. We don't have a functioning court system. Do what it takes. Just remove any vestiges of the old guy, and whatever new guy you put on top, we'll see how that works. That's what the people of Sudan said. Can you do that, military? And the military looked them in the eyes and said, no. They actually shortened the junta. The military was in charge, and they shortened their reign to put the vestiges of the old regime in power. Folks, you can't get the government you want. It's not allowed. You can't get the bad things you ask for. You will get the bad things that someone else asked for. And I think that's really critical. If the people of Sudan can't even get a proper military dictatorship, what hope do you have?
That was pretty bleak.
As always, I'm Marcel.
And I'm Dan.
And this is The Moral Minority.
See you next time.
Let us be united for peace. Let us also be united against defeat.
I know too much about nuclear. A lot about nuclear.